Okay, hello everybody. This is a short replay of the introductory aspect of the webinar from last week. It didn't actually record, so here's a quick summary of it. And as the title says, we're going to focus today's webinar on making a multi-criteria model. But since it's also the first webinar, we'll do some introductory material as well. And after that introductory material, we'll briefly introduce the WikiScience experimental site, and then get into the demo. Now the demo did record, albeit in the wrong format, but that's going to be posted in addition to this, its own file. It's a flash file, but it's viewable on Windows Media Player. Okay, so the very quick summary of this initial slide is the fact that we are losing ground in a lot of different ways. Here's a picture of a steelhead. I grew up fishing for steelhead and watching them in the rivers and just loving them. And in that same stream where I grew up, now you can't fish for them anymore because there's not as many. And now my kids, they won't know any different. So this shifting baselines is happening 1,000 times over, 1,000,000 times over, all over the world throughout history. It's getting even more intense now, and we're even having more and more people moving to the urban environment, away from the rural environment. A lot of psychologists are saying that that's causing less care for the woods and for nature, and more kids are playing video games, and there's many different ways of looking at this. You could look at the global warming issue. Bottom line is it's tough. We're losing ground, and we really need to step it up when it comes to conservation science. Well, fortunately, technology is a double-edged sword. Not only has it been causing a lot of problems, but it's also pretty fantastic in a lot of ways, and it's here to stay, so let's utilize it in conservation and in leveraging conservation science. And so one of the ways to do that is through what's known as WikiScience, or collaborative and distributed science. And my thinking from it stems a lot from this book as well as previous works, but the idea behind Wikinomics is that you can have mass collaboration in a way that we've never experienced before. It's a complete game changer now with Web 2.0. And so the principles of Wikinomics that I draw on is the 4 principles in the book. Talk about being open, sharing, peering, and thinking globally. In other words, yeah, again, the rules of the game have changed. People all over the world can collaborate on projects that they're not necessarily all have the same motivations for working on, but they're motivated for it nonetheless, especially if they're sharing their results and sharing their products and being open with each other. And some of the things I'm focusing on specifically in this presentation, this experiment, is that the principle of supplying an infrastructure for mass collaboration. The whole, if you build it, they will come principle. And then also considering pilot projects to ease into new practices. So in this case, we're talking about everybody on this call really is coming to it from an angle of let's further spatial decision support systems. And just so we're all on the same page, the idea behind this, in short, is that we're not only combining data and theory, but also human values in this support system, which is not a decision-making system, but it's actually a support system for the decision makers who also bring their own innate knowledge. And WikiScience meets decision science, and that here over on the left side of the diagram, just a schematic indicating how we can all be at our desks, distributed throughout the country, throughout the world, and working on these types of issues on our own time, but in a collaborative framework. And this will really help with the spatial decision system development. And in this webinar series, the series really has 3 purposes. One is to look at that teamwork, both within TWS and without. We're looking at this possibility of working with partners and outside the organization. That's part of the whole principle of Wikinomics. Another part of the webinar series is to all of us to share and work together, make sure we're on the same page regarding some of the fundamental theory, especially for GIS and multi-criteria modeling and conservation planning. And then the third purpose is to share some of my findings regarding Model Builder, just kind of teach people how to do it, use it. This is one of the fundamental things in WikiScience in our application of it is if everybody's doing their geoprocessing in Model Builder or Python or some other programming platform, then we're able to share our models really a lot easier rather than long Word documents of how to do this one step at a time. For now, we're going to do this every 2 weeks, and we'll reevaluate that maybe in mid-January or so. And if we even want to continue it past that time. Now, what we did on the live calls, we went around and had brief introductions for everybody that's on the WebEx. We just went down in first name alphabetical order. Everybody had a brief chance to introduce why they were on the call, what they were interested in. Several people talked about the case studies where they're hoping to apply the spatial decision support system. Second major theme was people were interested in a virtual water cooler type approach where we can discuss and share ideas and issues in a little bit more of a structured and usable format than email reply to all. And yeah, that was pretty much the major thing. Spencer brought up a really interesting theme too, which is looking at how WikiScience is going to integrate with this evolution of science itself. How we're moving from beyond from the postmodern view of science in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then we're even moving beyond that. So recognizing that science is somewhat relative and it's all about documenting and being transparent, and he's interested in seeing where that goes too. That's a nice big picture perspective. So the people on this, viewing this recording are probably Janice Thompson from TWS, Bo Wilmer, maybe Ann Ingerson over in the East Coast. Bo's thinking of applying this to the Sierras. Ann's probably applying this with Pete McKinley over in the Northeast. And possibly Stephen Holness from South Africa, who's a conservation planner that I got to work with or at least interact with in South Africa. Hopefully he's joining in on this. And possibly Alice McClure, who's a student working in South Africa on decision support systems, and we're looking forward to seeing her research, which will detail that more, much more eloquently. I guess over time other people might be viewing this too as well, so welcome. And getting into it, now we're back on. So the WikiScience site is in completely beta form, just been experimenting with a lot of things. Heather Farah has been volunteering a tremendous amount of time towards developing that, so if you have feedback for her, let her know. But for now, don't even really bother browsing it too much. We don't want you to get a burnout because it is going to change a lot. In the meantime, though, if you do want to use the user forum, you're welcome to. Here's the URL to it, and as of now, please don't spend time populating your personal profile, because Heather's going to get a template up for that, and I'll notify everybody once that's ready. The rest of the site is, as I mentioned, under construction. Now, the purpose of today's webinar is to get into this topic of GIS and multi-criteria decision analyses. This book by Jacek Malczewski is the 1999 version of this topic, and it's get into this topic of GIS and multi-criteria decision analyses. This book by Jacek Malczewski is the 1999 version of this topic, and it's pretty much, from what I can gather, it's pretty much the Bible for this issue. And fortunately, I hear from Randall that they're coming out with a second edition this year at some point, so looking forward to seeing that. Now, it's a summary of, okay, fire engine going by. summary of the issue at hand and kind of the framework that we're going to be using is we're going to be doing most of this in the raster environment. And a real quick overview of that is that you can convert the layers of information regarding the environment into actually numerical values in a grid-based environment. And then you can do map algebra on those layers. All the cells that overlay on top of each other, you can do mathematical equations. So, for instance, say these are some hypothetical rasters that come out of such a landscape, and taking these rasters down to even a smaller level of a 4x4 analysis. This is just a schematic. A real raster can be like 2 million cells or more, and but all the cells completely overlap with the layers of the other the cells of the other layers. So, for instance, in this example, the lower left cell for the species representation layer was a value of 0. Probably no species there that we're looking at. Habitat representation layer had a value of 0.5, and so when you add those two up, it gets a value of 0.5. And you can see how the other 4 cells add up. Now, to do the weighted sum, you actually multiply a weight times each layer, and then you will get a, in this situation, for instance, the lower left cell again gets 0.2 times 0, which is 0, and plus 0.8 times 0.5, which is, sum those up, it's a 0.4. And you can see how all 4 of those add up. So that's, in essence, what we're going to be doing today, and I'm going to show you how to do it in Model Builder. And then so we could all be on the same page as that. In future discussions, we'll get into some of the pros and cons of this approach and how to compensate for some of the cons. And further in this discussion, we're going to take the sample data set that most everybody has and has downloaded and has started using, and we're going to look at this final combination right here between composition and spatial context going up into this biodiversity value box. So we're going to program this weighted multi-criteria sum, and we can first use the weights of 0.5 and 0.5, but we're going to do it in such a way that the user can redefine those weights. Okay, so that's that part of the intro, and then now we'll go ahead and get on into the demo, and you'll be able to download that from the site as well. The parts of logistics, I guess, that we covered near the end is that we're going to have a meeting in 2 weeks, and that's Wednesday. Actually, it's only 9 days from now, and contact me if you have any questions. We'll be on email. All right, thanks. Bye.